Today, I'm trying to solve Akkei's Pentagon 1, which may or may not be a pentagonal square 1, depending on who you ask. I'll be taking it from this to this, in the process finding out how similarly Akkei's Pentagon 1 solves to an actual square 1 mod, instead of whatever this is. I posted a video earlier explaining how a true Pentagon 1 is impossible to make, but this reimagined version by Akkei implements most of the square 1 concept, so it's a really interesting interpretation of the concept. You should definitely check out that video if you're interested, it explains a lot. Something I didn't go into detail on is how the actual cuts were made, and I feel that showing that process would help you understand better why this supposed Pentagon 1 looks like it does. Here's what the top face of a true Pentagon 1 would look like. The edges take up 24 degrees of space, and the corners are exactly twice as wide, meaning 48 degrees. Of course, in this configuration, no slices line up across the puzzle. Now, let's look at the square 1 slices, front to back. They crisscross, going between the left on one side and the right on the other. Let's draw the same lines on top of the Pentagon 1. Here's the first one, now let's repeat that around the entire puzzle. This looks like a crazy mess, so let's draw a circle encapsulating only the middle section and reduce it to just a single slice through. Does it look familiar now? The original Pentagon 1 slices no longer matter because a section of every edge and corner has been taken away and given to these new triangle pieces on the inside. The beauty of Akkei's Pentagon 1 is that the triangles basically do nothing except acting as spacers, thus allowing the centers and edges to maintain their square 1 style relationship in which the corners are twice as wide rotationally as the edges, once again 48 and 24 degrees respectively. So that's how the cuts on Akkei's Pentagon 1 were designed. When I first read his explanation of the slices, I was actually blown away. This is a really cool concept, and I've actually already designed and built a triangular version that I'll probably show in some future video. But for now, I want to try solving Akkei's Pentagon 1 using square 1 algorithms. Is this the most efficient method? Probably not. There's definitely some bespoke algorithms that have yet to be created, which could shorten the solve time significantly. I'm not trying to speed solve this thing. One of the unknowns is these triangle pieces. I'm not sure if they'll be trivial to solve, difficult, or just somewhere in between. Akkei did give me the option of having them unstickered, since that would have been the pure implementation of his concept, but I chose to have them stickered, so I guess I'll deal with the consequences. So, that's the concept behind Akkei's Pentagon 1. I really want to see whether square 1 algorithms will work on it, and if it actually ends up feeling like I am solving a square 1 mod and not some other completely different puzzle. Let's find out, and if you want to keep seeing unique puzzles, like and subscribe. Finally, it's time to scramble Akkei's Pentagon 1. I'm first going to scramble around the colors without changing the shape, and then we'll see what kind of crazy shapeshifting this thing can do. Okay, so after a bit of wrestling, here we have a decent looking scramble, at least to me. I mean, the shape isn't that crazily shapeshifted, but I'm probably going to get all of the edges next to each other anyway, so we're definitely going to see plenty of shapeshifting. So, let's start solving it. This is going to be my first time solving the Pentagon 1, but I'm not unprepared. Back when the puzzle was in the solve state, I actually tried a bunch of different square 1 algorithms on it to see what they do. So I do have some ways of moving around corners, edges. I really don't have that much for the little triangles, but also a lot of the square 1 algorithms don't mess up the little triangles. So I'm hoping I can kind of skate by without really needing to deal with them too much. And then I don't have a parity algorithm. I have an idea for what maybe would work for parity, but for the time being, I'm just gonna pretend parity doesn't exist because honestly, I'm already kind of scared of solving this thing. I don't need yet more stuff worrying me. What I want to do now is get all of the edges next to each other on one face, except for one edge which has to be on the other face, and that's just because of the angles the pieces are sliced into. I don't know how hard this is going to be, but let's give it a shot right now. Okay, and here we are. We have all of these edges right here, and then the last one is here. That actually wasn't as hard as I was expecting, but it was a little bit trippy because I kept having to think about whether a piece was available on the little side or the big side, because if I have two pieces on the big side, then I can't put them together. Two pieces on the little side, I can't put them together. Like, for example, look. You would think it would be easy to just add the other one, right? Because this lines up perfectly next to the slice. So can't I just slice the last one up here? No, because this one is on the inside, see? So if I were to turn this, nothing would happen. And there's no way of putting it on the outside and getting a cut to line up. So that's something that's kind of a culture shock from the Square-1, where it'd be like, yeah, totally, just if it's on this side here, just bring it all the way around to right here and it'll totally go down. But nope, nothing of the sort. So that's as good as it's getting. I'm going to glue this sticker in place and then see if I can find a repeatable way of getting from this state into the puzzle's natural solved shape. Okay, now that I have finally solved the shape, the next step that I'm going to take is getting all of the white pieces on the white side and all of the yellow pieces on the yellow side. But the thing about this is, I believe that saving the triangles for last is actually the best strategy. So for the time being, I'm going to completely ignore the colors that are on them and just put all of the white corners and edges on the white side, and likewise for the yellow ones. I do want to be careful not to flip the sides because I don't think there's a trivial way of just getting all of the pieces from the white face down to the yellow face and preserve them. So it's actually pretty important to get the center orientation right from the very beginning. And here we are. All of the colors are correct except for these little tiny triangles. Honestly, that wasn't anything too crazy. It was about as much effort as it would be on any other of these slightly more complicated Square-1 puzzles. So right now what I'm going to try to do is get all of the corners solved. I have tested a few algorithms. For example, the normal Square-1 corner permutation will keep these in place and then 3-cycle these, but it also screws up the little triangles. The headlights algorithm will actually keep these in place and cycle the other 3 around, and that one doesn't affect any of the little triangles. The algorithm that on a Square-1 would switch these two and these two, that works just fine. And then the last one is the one that switches only one face diagonal corners on a Square-1. That's actually the only way I know of at the moment to switch only 2 corners in total. And that algorithm will actually screw up a bunch of other stuff that I'll have to resolve, so I'd like to avoid that if I can, but at the very least, no matter what cases I get, I have enough tools at my disposal to fix this. So right now, let's see what I have on the white side. I have greens are good, purples are good, and these two need to switch. So now let's evaluate the yellow side, because I can switch these two, but I'd rather switch 2 on this layer as well. So let's see if that applies to any of them. We have these blues here. That's solved. That's... Oh, okay, yeah. So this is actually trivial. All I have to do is set these pieces up on the correct side of the slice. I prefer putting the little side to the left and the right and the big side to the right. So let's set up the other pair as well on this bottom layer. And then of course we want to start with the slice being on the left side. And now we're just going to do the normal, well, imagine having the correct pieces. And now I'm just going to do the normal algorithm that switches these two and these two. And there we are, all of the corners are actually solved. That was much quicker than a typical solve on this, because normally I'd have to do a bunch of 3 cycles on this layer, 3 cycles on the other layer, some 2 swaps. Especially the really annoying thing is if only 2 corners are switched, because then I have to do an algorithm that only like half works. But thankfully, this actually wasn't that bad. The one thing that could still screw us up later is parities. That's only 2 edges being swapped. So right now I'm going to have to start cycling the edges around to eventually find out. Okay, so for the edges, the algorithm that would switch 2 on the top layer and 2 on the bottom layer actually works basically as intended. So it would switch these 2 with each other, and then these 2 with each other. And then the normal 3-cycle algorithm keeps these in place and cycles these 3 around. So I'm just going to use some combination of that to get all this done. Let's see. Are there any two swaps that would help us? So I can see already that these green and purple pieces need to be switched. Let's see if there's anything similar here. There's nothing that's as much of a slam dunk on this side, but at the very least, we can get this blue piece in. So let's set them up on the other side, because remember, I always want the bigger slice to be on the right. So set it up like this, and of course, the slice should be on the left side. And then on the bottom layer, it would switch these 2. So let's put these over here. That looks right. Now let's do the algorithm. Okay, so you can see that this blue edge is now in the position, and both the green and the purple edges are in their position, so the algorithm actually works pretty beautifully for that. Now let's turn everything back to the correct middle layer position and figure out what other edges I need to take care of. Okay, so it looks like these should be a pretty simple 3-cycle, because this one will go here, this one will go here, and this one will go here, so that's good. Now the question is, can we take care of this with a 3-cycle, or are we going to have to do the parity, which I really wouldn't want to, but let's see. So this can go there, that can go there, that can go there. That wouldn't help us that much. I feel like I'd rather try and get this orange one in place in that case, so that at least that's out of the way. So like I said, the 3 cycle keeps these 2 in place and cycles these 3 around. So are these the ones we want to cycle? Nope. Let's move them over. Is this them? We want to yeah, because we want to put the orange here. And then this is good, this won't get affected. So let's do that now. So now's the moment of truth. We should be able to find out if we need to do a parity algorithm just for the yellow side. So if we do a 3 cycle, this will go here, this will go here, and this will go here. Okay. Thank goodness I don't have to do parity. At the end of the video, I'll still show you how I would do it. Just not having to do it right now really is going to save me a lot of time. So I'm pretty thankful that I don't have to do it. So these are going to be kept in place. So we want to put these 2 in their positions. Okay, and then these 3 will get cycled, so let's finish up the white layer edges now. And there we have it, the white layer edges are all set. So now we have just a single 3 cycle left, and we should also be able to get all of the yellow side edges. So we're going to want to put the good pieces here, I believe. Yeah, and then bring this over and then just do the algorithm one last time. Okay, and finally, the actual Pentagon 1 is solved, meaning if the original concept held true of these little triangles being unstickered, the puzzle would be complete right now, but of course, they're stickered with either white or yellow, so we do have to solve them. This is the point where I reveal that this might actually not have been the fastest way to do it, because basically, fixing these little triangles will actually result in some corners and assorted other pieces getting swapped, so I'm gonna probably have to redo some of that corner permutation and edge permutation, but the reason why I took it all the way here before touching the triangles is in case I got parity. Because if I got parity, then all of the work I had done would have been completely destroyed, including the triangles. So I'd rather get it to here, make sure I don't have parity, and then fix the triangles and fix whatever else, because at this point, there's no way that just fixing the triangles can induce parity. At least, I hope so. I haven't gotten that yet. It would be scary if that could happen. So yeah, let's take a look at how I have figured out how to solve these triangles. It's not an algorithm, it's somewhat of an intuitive process, but what you basically want to do is set up the slice so that when you do this double turn without any offsets, this triangle and this piece should match. So you can see this actually isn't good because these are 2 different colors. What about on this side? Likewise, this is useless for us, so let's try and set up pieces differently. Maybe like this and this. This should do something, I think. Okay, yeah, so you see that if the cut line were shifted over to here, this would be a complete edge. And likewise, if the cut line were to shift over to here, this would be a complete yellow edge. So this actually tells us that we should move forward with this. So once you find a pair that does make sense to swap, you're gonna bring both of them over like this, and switch them around, and then actually just use that other cut slice to get the cube back into its original shape, except bringing these complete edges together. And that's pretty much it. Now I just have to repeat that for all of the rest of the little triangles that are screwed up. And let's see. It would be good to know what this actually screws up. So it looks like this, this, and this are now switched around. But it does the same thing on the top and bottom layer, so I think that's why it can never induce parity. I'm actually not going to fix this right now. I'm just going to do all the triangles and then come back and fix everything, but with the confidence that I'm not going to have to deal with parity. So let's see what else we can do. If we get maybe that one, can we bring this up to like a yellow one? Well, obviously without offsetting it. So that's good. Is the other side good? The other side actually would be broken up if I did that, so that's not a good idea. So this one's good because you can see that while this isn't going to be a complete edge, we're only doing one triangle per side at a time. So we're basically going to pair up this white edge with this white triangle, and then likewise this yellow edge with this yellow triangle. So we can go forward with this one. Okay, so that's one less set of edges and little triangles to worry about. I think you get the point at this point. I'm just going to speed through doing the rest of these. Something I'm not sure about is whether or not the triangles are some way bound to be in the same positions on the top and bottom layer. Like you can see here, they're kind of next to each other and they're both on the same side, and here they're also next to each other and both on the same side. I don't know if that's a geometric limitation of the puzzle or just some kind of coincidence, honestly. Okay, I'm down to the last triangle, and something I'd actually want to point out right now is I'm very lucky that these two are on the same side. If they're on opposite sides, like for example, this one's there and that one's there, so that means that this one's next to the cut line and this one wouldn't be next to the cut line. At that point, I'd actually have to do something else. I'd basically have to shift this over, do this move, and then basically try and line up both layers to where the color would still be solved after doing that. So it's actually not impossible or anything, it's just a little less easy to see for what that's worth. But this is the easier case where they're both right next to the cut line on the same side, so I could just bring that up, bring them over, switch that around, switch this around. And here we are. And now the triangles will actually always stay on the correct layers. That's because the only SQUARE-1 algorithm that I've noticed affecting the triangles is the algorithm which on a SQUARE-1 would swap 2 corners, but on this cycles 3 corners. If I just don't use that algorithm, then I'm confident that all of the triangles will stay in place. And I won't get corner parity, and I won't get edge parity. If I were to encounter parity, I would solve it the same way I showed in the Octagon 1 solve, where I would put 2 corners on one layer and then 4 edges on the other layer, and then use the adjacent swap algorithm on them, and then resolve the whole puzzle. I didn't get parity in this solve, but I did get parity in other solves I've done since, and the strategy does work just fine, although it is a bit clunky. So, I think this should be smooth sailing to the finish. Let's do it.
Finally, the white and yellow corners are back into their respective positions, and now I just have to solve these ideally parity-free edges. I'm like pretty sure there's no way they're gonna have parity at this point, but who knows? This is an extremely weird puzzle. Okay, and if I understand this correctly, I should now just have two swaps of two edges right here, right? Yeah. So the algorithm is going to affect these two and these two, so we probably want to scooch this over to here. Alright, and now we are a single algorithm away from finally solving this absolute beast of a puzzle. Let's do it. And here we are, Akkei's Pentagon 1 has finally been conquered by me. I can solve any state that this thing could get itself into. All of the swaps, all of the parities, all of the little triangles, those were all big hurdles in this process, and I'm very glad that I was able to get it all figured out. This is an extremely unique puzzle.
So that's about it for me solving Akkei's Pentagon 1. In the end, I was really surprised just by how normal it felt to solve. Despite all of the crazy differences it has from real SQUARE-1 puzzles, a lot of the algorithms worked okay enough, and many of the concepts carried over. I was genuinely impressed just how much like an actual SQUARE-1 it felt, and that was Akkei's goal, so he did a great job. Thanks again to Akkei for letting me borrow his Pentagon 1. Check him out, I'll link him in the description below. Thanks for watching, I'll see you another time. Bye.